Well, friends, the election is almost over. I know it's Friday, and you're kind of like, wait, it's not over yet? Yeah, we still don't know how two of those states are going to vote in the presidential election, supposedly. We got two Senate seats still kind of up in the air. We have a dozen or so congressional House races that we still don't know. California is still counting ballots out there. So is Nevada, Arizona. Pennsylvania's still got another 100,000 ballots that they're supposedly going to get to at some point here. Absolutely chaos. But even with the election still going on, we have the Democrats out there trying to sabotage our government and our economy in preparation for the Trump administration. We need to talk about this because I promise you, this will impact you. We have a rough 2.5 months, closing in on 2 months now, that we need to survive before we even get the Trump administration in. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And we talk about the things that the mainstream media definitely will not talk about out there. Back during the Napoleonic Wars, when Russia was invaded by Napoleon, they executed a scorched earth strategy, where they basically were burning all the villages, they were burning all the food supplies, so that basically as the French Napoleonic troops came into Russia, all they found for hundreds and hundreds of miles was just scorched earth. There were no buildings, there was nothing, just burnt stuff, burnt ground. And the Russians did the same thing during World War II, where the Germans came in and they basically just burned everything. Well, the Democrats are apparently taking that that process, and they're trying to implement it with the government and with the economy. I'm going to walk you through some of the things that they're already planning on doing, and believe me, they are rapidly trying to come up with more crap that they could do before they get kicked out. A lot of this is treason, but when has that ever stopped them before? When the first Bush administration came in 2000, they found the White House trashed. The outgoing Clinton administration actually destroyed much of the furniture. They cut wires. They did as much damage to the White House as they possibly could before the Bush administration came in. And George W. Bush decided not to make a big deal about it, but to just be the better man. And he's still being the better man for the Democratic Party ever since. Wow. But that's the kind of actions and behavior to expect from these people. So, what is the Biden administration planning on doing, and what's the deep state trying to do to the economy at large? They want the economy to basically blow up in Trump's face within the first couple months. So, are they doing things to immediately destroy the economy? Maybe, but I think ideally they want it to do permanent damage so that when he comes into office, there's less options and it looks even worse. We just saw that with the Federal Reserve. They just cut interest rates 0.25%. Are we having a banking crisis, or are we not having a banking crisis? Because the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates as if we're having a banking crisis. That's how fast they were cutting during the great financial crisis of 2008. That's how they cut rates at back in 2000, 2001. And yet we've been told for the last 6 months that the economy is the best it's ever been. That the Biden-Harris administration just doing fantastic things and making things wonderful. Well, yet we have the Federal Reserve out there. And I think part of it is that they were cutting interest rates before the election, and so they kind of had to save some face and cut them again after the election, so it didn't look quite as partisan. But now I think there's something even more nefarious happening. I think they're cutting interest rates to juice the stock market while Biden is still in office, and then when Trump takes over, there's no room for the interest rates to go down anymore. So they're basically just putting the market on a sugar high so that it covers up any kind of weakness underneath, which we'll talk about in just a moment, which there is considerable. We see the market, the financial system. We see the actual businesses out there really struggling. Sales are down, orders are down. Companies are laying people off like right and left, but the stock market's still looking really, really good. How does that work? Well, if you cut interest rates enough, you prop it up, at least temporarily. But then that means that emergency reserve won't be there when Trump gets into office. They're trying to get rid of his emergency reserve, and they're trying to pump up and make it look like Biden's wonderful or something. Anyway, so what else is the Biden-Harris administration doing right now? Well, we've seen this over the last number of months. They're doing mass hiring. They're hiring tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands over the last number of months of federal workers. They know it's going to be very hard for Trump to fire these workers, so they're hiring as many as they possibly can. Stuff all the bureaucracies as full up with cake eaters and basically whistleblowing terrorists, so that when Trump gets into office, he has to deal with firing these people who are going to be filing lawsuits, who are going to be filing wrongful termination. They're going to be doing all sorts of stuff to stop him from firing them. People who were just hired just a few months ago. And so expect that to continue. Biden is going to continue trying to stuff all of these agencies with as many people as they possibly can that are loyal to the party line, the communist agenda. So mass hiring. But not only that, they're continuing with executive orders. But they're not just trying to do executive orders that can be easily counteracted. What they're trying to do is they're trying to issue executive orders that are going to have longer term effects, and also are going to be they're going to be able to challenge in court when Trump tries to reverse them. So basically, executive orders that promise people, constituents, something. They give somebody rights, and then when Trump tries to take away those rights, they can then have a lawsuit to stop it. So they're trying to push those things through. And we're going to talk about the Supreme Court in just a second here, because that is core to what they're doing. But the other thing that they're doing is that they are trying to get as many people across the border as possible. And I would not be surprised if before Biden leaves, he's going to do some sort of executive order that's going to do the equivalent of DACA, or the Dreamers Act. So he's going to try to give like a pathway to citizenship, or he's going to try to promise to the millions and millions of people here in the U.S. Some sort of rights or whatever, so that when Trump gets in, he not only has to deal with the DACA, the Dreamers, but then he also has to deal with this new classification, this new class that has gotten rights or a pathway or something along those lines from President Biden. So that is going to be another major monkey wrench that they're going to throw into the cogs of machinery of government. And a lot of this stuff is just going to have to be dismantled by the Trump administration. And my recommendation on that is that they need to attack these things from all sides simultaneously. Not just revoke that executive order, but they need to revoke the executive order. Then they need to basically attack it from multiple different directions to make it so that the people that benefit from the executive order don't even want it anymore. So like, let's use the example of something like a DACA. Something where a classification of immigrants or migrants, in DACA case, it's the children of people who came in illegally. So basically trying to grant them status, or they came in when they were very, very young, gives them like status and potentially a pathway to citizenship. How do you deal with that? Well, one, you revoke it with another executive order. But then what you do is you make it so that it's uncomfortable for the people in that class. So you take away the incentives, right? You could do crazy things like remove welfare benefits to people in this class, and then you could make it so that for renting an apartment or something like that, you have to provide proof of citizenship, or just make it so that it just one thing on top of the next. It becomes increasingly more difficult for them. And when you go to fire agencies, same thing. You fire them, but then you also do a whole bunch of other things against them. I think one of the things that we should absolutely do is when you want to get rid of an agency, one of the things is you should take the agency's building and you should declare it to be a migrant housing center. So take the office building where all these people are working and declare it overnight to be a migrant housing center. And you bring up a whole bunch of people at midnight while everyone's home, away from the office. At midnight, you pull up a bunch of buses and tell all the people that this is your new home. You can renovate it on the inside. You can find a place to sleep or whatever. And so when they try to come back in the morning to their office, they find that they're not welcome in their office because this is now a migrant housing center. And this is these people's homes. You can't evict them. You see? So when you layer these strategies on top of each other, I think that that's the best way of dealing with these things, is so that the people that would sue don't even want to sue. And the people that are going to sue, they now have to sue against getting fired. They also have to sue against their office building being turned into this. And at the same time, you're ordering them to be in the office 5 days a week, or maybe even order them to do overtime work. And then at the same time, you then cut their pay, right? So you readjust their pay for that administration, that agency down to minimum wage. Or you take away their health benefits or change their health benefits. And so you just attack them from like 10 different directions simultaneously, and then it basically has to be like 10 different court cases. The chaos that they've been doing to us, we need to do back to them. We need to rage that same chaos against the government from a legal challenges, executive orders, all that kind of stuff, and potentially even with laws. That's my recommendations on that, as if anyone cares about that. But so we got the executive orders coming out. We got mass hirings. We got trying to bring as many people across the border as possible. And if you can get these groups to fight each other, that's all the better, right? If you can get the migrants upset against the deep state bureaucracy, that's just chef's kiss, right? Let's talk about the Supreme Court. We have out there Sotomayor. She's either 70 or just about to turn 70, but rumor has it she's type 1 diabetic. She's sick. She's 70, but she's sick. And apparently she's been sick a lot the last couple of years, and so there is this fear that she might not make it the 4 years of a Trump presidency. So the Democrats are out there already trying to twist her arm to get her to basically go into retirement. So Biden and his democratically controlled Senate can appoint her replacement. Of course, that's going to be a challenge for them to get her to quit. But they're going to try it, right? They have just a little bit of time to move that quickly. Then they're also they're starting to talk again about packing the Supreme Court. Now, that talk hasn't really taken hold just yet, but it's starting to percolate again. They've talked about this before. Of course, if they do pack the Supreme Court, the obvious thing to do right back in their face is that if they take the Supreme Court from 9 justices up to 13 or something, Trump could just take it up to 25. I don't know if Republicans have the stomach for that, but I think if the Democrats do something so in your face, I think there'll be more Republicans that will be able to stomach basically just going back to the status quo and basically negating whatever stunt the Democrats just pulled. So I think the Democrats kind of realize that if they do that stunt, they're really going to have to check themselves to see if they think the Republicans will match them stunt for stunt, or if they may just create a lot more ill will towards them by the Republicans in Congress and in the Senate. So we got the economy being hit. We got the government being sabotaged. I wouldn't be surprised if before this month is out, we start hearing about how the Biden administration is tearing down sections of the border wall. We already have reports out there of migrant caravans being put together down south to get people into the U.S. before the Biden administration is over. And we just saw a highly suspicious raid of Alfie Oakes' farm and his home, a conservative down in Florida, where the IRS and the Department of Defense raided his house. We just talked about this morning, and the more I look at it, without any sort of really crazy story, this is absolutely, he's not military. Okay, so why is the Defense Department involved with a U.S. civilian? Now, it's not like the Marines are storming his house, but it is the Defense Criminal Investigation Services, right, or whatever. It is these agents are supposed to be making sure that there isn't criminal mischief happening on U.S. military bases, that there isn't criminal things that the military is doing. They exist to investigate the military. So why are they showing up in Florida with the IRS to go after a U.S. civilian? There are questions here that need to be answered, and it stinks to high heaven. This is kind of a Gestapo-type move, honestly. And where does the buck stop on this? Who's in charge of the IRS? Who's in charge of the Department of Defense? There's one guy who's in charge of both of them. The Treasury Secretary is not in charge of the Department of Defense, but you know who is? The President of the United States. And questions should be asked to the White House. What is happening here? Why is Alfie Oakes' farm being raided in this way? And if you're like, well, Steve, we should just kind of wait and see how the investigation comes out because they probably have some probable cause. These are the same type of folks who raided Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago and then falsified evidence and leaked it to the press. These are the same people who have raided people's homes who were protesting outside of clinics peacefully, did not harm anyone, have SWAT raids hitting them in the dead of night. We have had so much abuse from the law enforcement agencies of the United States government that we should absolutely be asking questions, and we should be asking them right away. Not waiting, asking them right away. Because that is absolutely absurd. If anyone has any contacts with Alfie Oakes, I would gladly like to do an interview with him. Gladly give him an opportunity to share with the world what's happening. I don't have any way of contacting him, but other channels should be doing that as well to hear their side. If the IRS and the Department of Defense are mum and don't want to say anything about this, well, that's fine, but let's hear it from the other side then, because people have the right to speak out against their government, especially when their properties are being raided by people with machine guns. If you don't have a right to defend yourself physically, you should have your right to defend yourself with your speech and legally. Absolutely. All right, friends, we need to hold this administration accountable in its waning hours and days. Hopefully they'll be gone sooner rather than later. But before they go, they are doing a lot of damage all over the place. We need to hold them accountable. And we need to realize how much this is going to impact each of our lives. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.